Hey everyone, James here. Today we're going to be talking about the 7 things that you thought you knew about the aquarium hobby. Now sometimes in this hobby I think that a lot of misconception gets muddled with information, especially if you're a newcomer and starting out in the hobby, and sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming, or sometimes somebody is telling you stuff, you read things on the internet, you read things on Facebook, and it just can be very, very overwhelming. And sometimes some of the information you get, you just think like, where on earth did you hear this from? It's absolutely crazy, like you're talking absolute nonsense, but somehow it seems to get muddled and miscommunicated throughout the hobby, and this is what I want to talk about today. Number 7, aquarium cycling. So there's a massive misconception about cycling in aquariums. There's either 2 things that happen. Number 1, people have no idea when starting out in the hobby about what is cycling an aquarium, and on day 1 they will walk into their fish store and tend to buy the fish tank and all the fish and everything else, put it all together in the first day, and then carnage happens throughout the process. As the aquarium cycle happens, it's a lot of stress on a very new tank before the bacteria has grown, and then causes ammonia spikes, causes bacterial blooms, and then ends up killing all the livestock. And then you have that overwhelming feeling of, oh my god, what's happened? I don't like this. The person will then end up trashing the tank, throwing everything away, or sticking it on the internet and selling it dead cheap and completely write off the hobby, and that's it. Or secondly, they think they know exactly what you should be doing when cycling an aquarium. Now there's a ton of different ways, as I've discussed in a previous video before, that you can cycle an aquarium in a few different ways. Number 1, you can either go the conventional process, which is no fish in the tank, add a source of ammonia, either fish food or a bottle of liquid ammonia, and cycle the aquarium naturally over a period of say 4 to 6 weeks, doing all your water testing in between. Or there's a different way where you just add your fish on day 1 and then just use like beneficial bacteria bottles of it and put that in, and that can kickstart it. Or you can use existing media such as sponges or live rock if you're using marine aquariums, and something that's already got a lot of beneficial bacteria built up on the item. Put that into your tank and you're pretty much kickstarted your aquarium straight away. Number 6 is aquarium heaters. Again, is a massive misconception about the fact that certain fish need heaters for their aquariums, and if you've got tropical fish, you need a heater. Technically that is true, and if you've got them in environments such as mine, in a shed where the temperature, depending on the time of year, can fluctuate a little bit more than what it does inside a home, then having a heater in there helps keep the temperature of the water more stable. If you've got them in a home, however, I still feel that a lot of tropical fish tend to be within the sort of mid-20s or early 20s that you can have them, and they'll still cope with that. Not every fish, obviously, there is certain ones that don't, but a lot of freshwater fish especially tend to come from cool rivers anyway, and you got to remember that throughout the year in the wild, the river streams are not going to always be warm with the sun sort of blaring down on them. Sometimes they can be quite cool, whereas in the winter or the rain seasons. So it helps to recreate a bit more of a natural habitat if you don't have the heater, but there is still a argument to have one in the tank. But it's something that I don't think everybody is aware of, and then tends to either get into massive arguments or end up panicking when they think they've done it wrong. Number 5 is fish size. So a lot of people say, common misconception once again is that, oh, it's okay to have a certain fish in a smaller aquarium because the fish will always grow to the size of the aquarium. You couldn't be more wrong with this one. It's a very, very common misconception that fish grow to the size of their aquarium, especially the larger ones. You're okay for smaller freshwater fish, say as like guppies, but when you get to bigger tropical fish like Oscars or pacus or something like that, these fish can grow to average size about 36 centimeters. So it can be roughly about that size, if not double the size. If you go to many sort of public aquariums, I went to one recently and I saw some of these bad boys and they were like even bigger than that, about 40 centimeters, 50. And it was just ridiculous, like the size of some of these fish guys. And you've got to remember, these things are sold in the shops as this. So it's very, very common for people to get this misconception that, oh, I'll buy a smaller fish, it looks tiny in the shop, so it should be okay in my tank. And also you got to remember that the fish in the shops tend to be juvenile because they are trying to buy in very small sized animals so that the fish obviously lasts longer. When you take it home, it's not a fully grown adult yet, so these fish can be very tiny when you get them, and they look great in these massive huge aquariums in the fish shops, but when you get them home into your smaller tanks, they can then also be a lot larger. So it's definitely a misconception. Goldfish are another massive one, so just be aware of that as well. It's not true that the fish will grow to the size of the aquarium. Their organs will not crush because they are in a smaller aquarium. They will just grow and grow and grow until they outgrow that size tank. So just be very mindful of that. I think the other thing to remember is that a lot of people don't see fish keeping sometimes as a long-term thing, tend to think, oh, fish only last a couple of years, so by the time it gets to a larger size it won't happen. But fish can live varied amount of years, and you know, if you've taken good care of them, then they can grow massive. And I've had goldfish that are like this. If you're enjoying this kind of content, let me know in the description below, and also hit that subscribe button. Next one up is algae. Now, everyone that watches my channel will know my thoughts on algae, but for those of you who haven't watched any of my videos before, I am a very advocate of algae. Please do not panic when you see it. Please do not freak out. It's a completely normal, natural thing to happen in your aquariums, especially when you start, before the tank finds its natural balance, and whilst it's going through its very early stages. Algae can often outcompete the plants. But if you have plants in a freshwater tank or a cold water tank, for example, or even a marine tank, if you've got some sort of plant life that will uptake all that nutrients, eventually the plants will outcompete the algae, providing that you can find that nice, neat balance. So you're not overfeeding, you're not introducing too much light, various things like that, and you keep up with your regular maintenance. But having said that, algae is not a bad thing. It's in nature. A lot of animals thrive within it. Shrimp, for example, they will lay their eggs in it, they will graze on it as a natural food source. Again, algae is a very good food source for baby fry as well, so don't ever write algae off as being a bad thing. Yes, in large quantities, you could argue that it could be out of control and become a pest, especially the different types of algae. You've got hair algae, BBA algae, various things like that. So yes, in a sense, it can be a pest, but for the most part, it is a natural process to your aquariums, so you shouldn't completely write it off. And lastly, biofilms. Now, for those of you who don't know, biofilms is a white sort of fungus sort of thing that could often happen when introducing woods, for example, or various botanicals into your aquarium. And after a few days, once the bacteria starts to grow on them, it grows like a fungus, like a white fur. And again, most people, myself included, first saw this and originally panicked like crazy and thought, why on earth is there this random white stuff appearing everywhere in my tank? And it's a very friendly kind of fungus that your fish can graze on, or your shrimp or anything. It's a natural food source, so don't be afraid when you see it. Just give it time, and after a few days or a few weeks, then it will naturally go. Again, you could scrub it off if you really wanted to with a toothbrush or some sort of scraper, but again, let the animals take care of it. It's a natural process that's happening in your aquarium. It's definitely a good thing, and again, it's one of those misconceptions that when you see it, everybody panics. If you enjoy these educational type of videos, hit this link right here for more of those videos. And until next time, you stay safe.